Hi everyone,
Hi.
we are Linda and Caleb from Bamboo and Backpacks, and this is our Eco Travel Chat series.
Yes, and this week we have a great chat for you that we had with Hayley and Chris from Ecolust.life. These guys have been travelling this past year with hand luggage only, which is something we have been aspiring to for a long time, so we got a lot of inspiration from them. I hope you guys like the chat as much as we did.
It probably would make sense for everyone to kind of hear who you are and like what you've been doing, because it's your 14th country and you're going back home. But for anyone who doesn't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background and your story up to now?
Yep, so we are Hayley and Chris, and we're husband and wife from Brisbane, Australia, and we've been travelling since January this year, and our big goal was to travel as sustainably as we can, and we're just travelling with carry-on luggage. And we've recently created Ecolust podcast since we've been here in Plovdiv, and that is about living or being intentional and living sustainably.
So we started our Instagram a few years ago, just about telling people our journey on sustainability back home. And then we really wanted to travel, so we brought that into it and really tried hard to travel minimally and reduce our waste and really connect with the culture. So over this past 9 months, we've learned a lot of lessons and we've tried to share them as best we can. And we think moving to our website, which we've just released as well, and moving to the podcast, it can just give a better understanding of what we're doing and what we're trying to do for the future. And
Rather than Instagram,
it just helps us connect a bit better. And like what you guys are doing, you're trying to connect on a more visual and audio scale as well.
and like a more authentic basis. Like, we're having a conversation now, and we'll share our lessons that doesn't really come through on Instagram. So we're really excited with the work we're doing at the moment.
Oh, it is really exciting. It's amazing to be able to put faces or voice and actually be able to have a discussion, or it has a different feeling to get to know people in this way, through podcast or through website or through these video calls. It's perfect.
Yeah, Instagram can feel quite lonely. You're speaking through a platform that doesn't really engage one-on-one. It's more about sharing something to a mass media, where with these things you can really sit someone down, get to know them and have this one-on-one. Like, we would have never done this if we hadn't really been encouraged by our website and our podcast, I think.
And something that I really learned, especially traveling in South America, is that a lot of travel is not aesthetically appealing, and that is part of the beauty of it. Like, you go somewhere so different from your home and you learn that where you're from is actually entirely privileged and other people live in completely different ways. And it's good for you to realize that that's how other people live and that's what other cultures are like. But that's not something that you would really put on Instagram. So I'm glad that we can be more honest about our travels as well.
Definitely, that's something that we've been talking about a lot recently as well, in terms of what you can learn from traveling and the exposure to how other people live and how that then influences how we might want to live as well. Because, like you say, we come from countries where you when you see it again when you go home, you feel very privileged or very grateful from where you come from. But you can still learn so much from other cultures and bring that back and still apply that to your own life. And it's really amazing when you put yourself out there in those situations. And maybe it's not Instagrammable. We still try to make it Instagrammable. Whether it's, we're going less down the route of kind of posed and curated shots and more down the route of just showing you this is what life is like. And maybe it's through Instagram or through YouTube or through whatever platform. There are ways to get that out there. And I think there are more and more people who want to see this side of travel and this side of life. So it's great to find more people who do the same.
That's the type of content that I like to follow. I find it way more relatable, that we're all just normal people and we've taken our normal lives and made them quite extraordinary by doing this long-term travel. And I think that's more inspiring because it's more possible for people, rather than just seeing these people who look like models or they're millionaires and they wear beautiful clothes in these beautiful locations. I don't find that relatable, nor do I find it inspiring.
And I think people are more aware that you're doing it that way. Like, we've had Instagram now for a few years and people can see through that, and they're more after an authentic connection or something that's a bit more real that they can relate to, and not just something that they're scrolling through and liking and maybe aspiring to later on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, because a lot of people now we see like going out, up, climbing up mountains with dresses, and they seem to have like huge wardrobes with them wherever they go. So you guys have been traveling with hand luggage, like you said. How has that been for you guys?
In one word, challenging, but definitely been rewarding. I think it's probably been harder for me than you, would you say?
Yeah, I think anyone who knows men and women knows that it would definitely be harder for you. You have a lot more things that I wouldn't ever bring. Like, we were just getting ready for this, and it took me about 5 minutes, whereas it took you a little bit longer. You look lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
You do. You both look lovely.
A shirt on.
Yeah.
This is the shirt he whips out whenever we go for drinks or something.
Sorry, we lost you.
Oh.
Oh, we lost the connection for a moment there. Sorry. We're back.
So getting back to carry on, I was trying to think about what the most challenging thing for me was, and I really think it comes down to external pressures. Like, you can live off the same clothes for a long time, and yes, they do degrade and you do lose things along the way, but really they serve their purpose. And it's just like when I go on Instagram, or when I think about the high standards I used to have for my appearance, it's really just an external pressure, and it's not necessary. And so this trip has taught me that I can overcome that, and I can still do pretty much everything that I want to do without having the paraphernalia or looking as nice as I once did.
Yeah, it really challenges you as well. Like, travel is already putting yourself outside your comfort zone, and then by taking as minimal possessions as possible, you're not creating that big safety net of having all those items there to comfort you. So you're then creating a much smaller safety net that I think is much stronger. You're having purpose for all your items. You're putting a lot of thought into what you're taking, and you're taking care of them, and you then realize you don't need all those external things.
Yeah, like, you just adapt and you actually become quite creative. You make solutions out of nothing. We're like two traveling MacGyvers.
Yeah.
Definitely. We can totally
amazing.
relate to that.
Yeah, we are aspiring to be able to travel with
Hand luggage.
yeah, with hand luggage. So far, we travel with a big backpack that we share between both of us, and we have a carry-on size that is for all our gear and equipment. But
Yeah.
It gets more challenging when you're doing lots of different activities, and when you're traveling for a long time, of course, you're going to be doing more activities. And then in different climates, like if you have to pack for summer and winter, like we've been camping and hiking, and we did our yoga teacher training in the middle of a European summer, and snorkeling, and like so many different things. But like you can do all of those things with just a few items. You just have to, I think, just realize that you're always going to be wearing the same things.
Yeah.
And you're not always going to look great. Your outfit is not always going to be particularly suited to a certain occasion. And then you realize it doesn't matter. Like, when you meet people that you truly connect with during your travels, they don't care what you look like, they don't care how you dress, and your friends and family back home don't care about your appearance in the photos that they're seeing. And you realize that you have a better experience, and you become more resilient. And yeah, I don't regret doing this at all.
That's really great.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I lost the word that I was going to say, but it's inspiring. More people want to do the same.
Definitely. So for those people who might want to do the same, from what you've learned from this year traveling minimally, what would you say are like your personal, like, ultimate travel essentials?
I think a Kindle has been one of the best things I've brought, especially if you have one with a backlight. Like when you're going hiking, or if you're in a dorm room and you don't want to disturb people, it's really great to have that.
You also can't carry multiple books, so
Yeah.
it's a library in one small device.
Exactly, it's so small and it really serves a really good purpose. Definitely an eye mask and earplugs for any traveling, like on a plane or in a dorm room, again, with especially for males. I don't know about females, but the male dorm room can be quite noisy at night time. I always like to bring a packet of playing cards. Like, I think you can really take up some time if you're in transit or with some other people that you've just met. It's a good bonding experience, and you're always a good person to have around if you have playing cards as well.
Yeah, it's like a sneaky way to make friends.
Yeah.
I definitely think reusables, because even though we do have minimal space, you can still take some things that have maximum impact in terms of preventing the waste you create. Thermals, because they're so good for layering, they take up hardly any room. And we have merino ones that we love, because even if you get sweaty, you don't get smelly because they're breathable. And then headphones are so good for planes, and like, even if you're struggling to fall asleep in a dorm room, you can stick a podcast on. That's been a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
good.
Yeah, perfect. And what about the specific activities that you like to do, guys? Like you said, you enjoy hiking, camping, you've been doing snorkeling. Do you carry with you any of those gear or equipment that you need for those activities?
Well, we really love yoga, but we didn't pack yoga mats when we initially left, and then we bought them along the way. And so we wish we had them right from the beginning. But we have some travel yoga mats, and they fold up quite well. So yeah, that's something we're able to take with us anywhere and whip out and do yoga anywhere.
Yeah. We both brought our hiking boots, so they were a bit of a toss-up because they're so heavy and
they're not really versatile. It's like you use them for hiking and then you can't really wear them anywhere else because they're so ugly. But they're like waterproof, they keep you warm, they have proved their worth.
Yeah, and we just end up tying them to our backpacks. They don't really fit inside, and whenever we catch a plane, we have to wear them, and then we have to wear like 4 other layers just to keep our packs as small as possible.
Yeah.
And then of course we're working on the road, so we've got our laptops, 3 cameras, a drone, like so many cords. I don't know what all the cords are for, and then like chargers, adapters, and yeah, so I think some of the equipment we've got is more niche than what other people might need to pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how to pack those things? So you have a lot of equipment and cords. Like, do you have any like special way to fit everything into your hand luggage that makes it easier to squeeze it in?
I'd say the luggage itself makes a big difference.
Yeah.
We bought the Tortuga Outbreaker. They're 45 litres, and they've got so many pockets and different compartments that it makes it easy to fit everything in and keep everything organised. You don't need packing cubes. And I think that they've come in handy as well. Like you've noticed, because they're backpacks, even though we like pack them out to their limit, we are definitely pushing the barriers of carry-on luggage. We've never been fined for oversized carry-on because they're backpacks and they are like so compact.
But yeah, these packs, they have like a laptop sleeve and a lot of different pockets to put cords in. And with a day pack, I usually layer softer things to put cameras on top so they don't break. So I have like, it's almost like Tetris. You really have to be good at that, and really just be careful of your equipment obviously as well. So that can be difficult. But I do have a folder that keeps a lot of the charging cords together, so that keeps them all in one place and it's nice and soft already.
And also with our backpacks, they open like a suitcase, so you can see everything that you've got, and we roll our items, which takes up less space than just folding them. And because I've traveled with one of the traditional like backpacker backpacks, and you have to take everything out just to find something, it's a nightmare. So to be able to open your bag and see everything you have makes life much easier.
Very good tip. That's amazing. Well, we'll be sure to keep all these things in mind when we get to the point where we change from our big 70 litre to something smaller.
Yeah.
We will get there one day.
It's good to know also that you haven't faced any troubles with your backpacks in the airplanes, because here in South America recently we took a flight back from Colombia, and we took like different low-cost buses, flights. They wanted to charge us in all of those planes for a backpack that is a carry-on size.
Yeah.
But yeah, now they have like a tinier.
Yeah, they have like the size that's essentially free. It's like really small, and then they have like one that's not to check in into the hold, but it's like slightly bigger, and that one you would have to pay for to have it in the hand luggage in the cabin. We managed to escape having to pay the fines. They tried, and we were like kind of slipped into the queue again and managed to avoid it. But yeah, we were close to almost being charged extra. So I think yeah, that one kind of borders on the limits. So it would be good to have one that we know would definitely fit within the limits of hand luggage.
Yeah.
Definitely helps with anxiety on the day, waiting in line and hoping not to get fined. But they're so stringent on those on some of the cheaper airlines, which as budget travelers and long-term travelers is all we really take, especially like Ryanair and Wizz Air. And I'm sure those ones in South America, like you said, they try and charge you for every little thing. So it does help, but you can be unlucky, like you guys have been once.
And that's why like buses and trains are good, because you don't have to fit into those like stringent confines that airlines create.
Yeah, it was the first flight we'd taken in like 7 or 8 months, if not longer. So we didn't really think about it until we got to the airport. Suddenly we were like, oh, we have to actually think about how the size of our bags. Damn it. But well, it was good. We managed to get through.
Yeah. So, what are your tips for someone who is just starting on the sustainable travel journey?
The tip that we always come back to is know what your values are and know what makes you happy, because it's not something that we discussed between us before we left, and we both had different motivations and different expectations, and it wasn't until a few months into our trip that we realized we weren't traveling in a way that either made us happy or lived up to our expectations or our goals for the trip. So I think know what you want to get out of the trip, and that will determine like where you travel to and what activities you do and how long you spend in places and what you spend your money on and the type of people who you meet along the way. I think it's the founding factor of your travel, because if you're not traveling in a way that makes you happy, then you're not going to enjoy your trip, and you invest so much time and energy and money into travel, and you have to sacrifice so much to be able to travel, that you really want it to serve you.
Yeah, and I think over the last 9 months, my biggest tip would be to slow down.
Yeah.
Like you guys, we encourage people to slow travel now. It really makes you realize it is the best way to travel for yourself and the planet, especially. By slowing down, you not only get to enjoy the areas that you're in a lot better and experience them for what they are, you give yourself more time to be able to make those better decisions and really be able to reduce your plastic waste and stay in an area so you're engaging with the community a lot better, and you're finding out where to shop to support locals instead of the big chains. So really traveling slow and being able to make those decisions will be better for yourself and the planet.
Yeah. We were staying like 3-4 days in places initially, and it just gets exhausting. The physical act of packing and moving and taking transport, like transit days are the worst in terms of your whole travel experience. So if you can stay somewhere longer, you have a more genuine and authentic and beneficial travel experience. Because if you're only somewhere for a few days, maybe you tick off the tourist spots, and then what else do you actually experience? Like you don't know locals, you don't know the culture, you don't take anything in. It's really superficial. And so we really started slowing down like midway, and it was better for our mental health and better for our productivity, and we had more genuine experiences, I would say.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, we can also completely relate to that. I feel like the whole conversation was saying we can relate to that, but it's really true. Yeah, we also, when we first started traveling, did more fast-paced travel from one place to the next, and this last 2 years have been so different, and we've had so many more real experiences and connections with local people, and understanding how people live, and finding out what the local community is like and what's going on there.
Yeah, makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I think more people are interested in it now, which is great. More people are understanding the benefits, like what you were saying, for your own mental health, as well as being able to be involved in the community. It makes a really big impact.
Did you notice a difference between your motivations to travel quickly and then your motivations to slow down? Would you say it was more like what the world was telling you you should travel like compared to what actually brings you joy?
Um,
A little
a
bit.
little, yeah.
In Asia, particularly, it was where we were traveling faster. Also, my motivation to keep moving was Linda because I was really enjoying staying in one place, but Linda, yeah, there were so many places that she wanted to visit, and I also wanted to visit them, but I was a little bit more attached to a few of those places.
My initial plan was to only travel for 6 months, so that's why I was thinking I would kind of want to go to these countries. I'm only here for a short amount of time, so I would like to see some of these places that I've had kind of in my mind for a while, and then obviously it turned from 6 months into 3 years. So over that time, yes, you slow down and you kind of realize, oh, I prefer this if you're going to be going in that much for that much time. So yes, I think Caleb had already been traveling for almost a year by the time we started traveling together. So I think he'd already kind of eased into this idea of slow travel more than I had. So yeah, we probably in a similar way to you, we kind of started with slightly different expectations and different understandings of what we wanted to do as travel. And slowly we got into the pace that we're in now, which is much slower.
But yes, definitely, it has to do with what you said. These expectations or a little bit of this social pressure that if you go to these destinations, you have to see so many things and do all these activities that everyone is expecting you to do. We were having that conversation yesterday with a friend. That, I don't know where is he going to, but
Brazil.
Brazil,
Rio de Janeiro.
and he doesn't want to go to the Cristo of Rio.
Yeah, the Christ the Redeemer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people are surprised by that. But yeah, like we didn't go to Machu Picchu in Peru because you see it every day in pictures, and we'd rather experience other things more real, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny because Machu Picchu was Chris's number one bucket list item on this trip. So we went, but it wasn't meaningful to me. And like I could have taken it or left it. Like
Yeah.
it is ultimately like crowded and you're sort of like what's the word, like you feel like cattle kind of as you pass around, which is not to take away from how incredible it is. Like it's spectacular what the Incans created and that it has survived for so long, but as an experience as a traveler, I feel like I could have done other things that I would have enjoyed more myself.
Exactly. And if you like stay in hostels or things like that, people are always asking you what you're doing and where you've been.
Oh, did you do this? And oh, have you done that in this place? Like you're not a true traveler unless you've done this, this, and this in that place.
And you feel obligated, and then you feel if you haven't done that, you've got all this pressure to do it, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll do it. I guess if someone else has said how amazing their experience was, I should have an amazing experience there. And then if you'd go there and like you said, you didn't really care, but you went and then you didn't have a good experience, you sort of feel like something's wrong with you.
I only didn't have a good experience because I was really sick at the time.
Oh no. I think what you said also is on your question that you asked us is what brings you joy, and the world is huge and everyone has different things that interest them and that bring them joy, and yeah, you might not get the same feeling or the same experience of visiting a place like somebody else does, and that's totally okay. And when you've been traveling and staying in hostels and you've been speaking to other travelers, have you met many other people who are either being kind of sustainable or minimalist or slow travelers as well?
We've met a lot of vegetarians and vegans, and I think they do it I think when you go out and you see the world, it is more of an impetus to do what you can to look after the world. Like you realize you don't live in your bubble where food is just available at the grocery store in pristine condition. You learn that like what if something was to happen and Australia suddenly couldn't access food or like had couldn't access water. Like, it makes you think we should probably live differently to prevent that from happening. And we've met a lot of people who are into yoga and protecting the environment. Like, we actually met those people more when we started traveling slow, and we met other slow travelers, like in workaways. And like we lived in an eco permaculture garden, and then at a yoga retreat where a lot of stuff is like composted and taken from it, like they live off the land.
Yeah, I don't think hostels really create a society of slow travel. They're really like, you get in, you get out. Like, you might meet someone who's working there and volunteering there for a longer period of time, and they might be more inclined to slow travel. But as a general rule, I don't think hostels really give that vibe, especially in the States, where they actually have a limit on how long you can stay in a certain hostel as well. So they're not the environment. I really think it's about people like getting an Airbnb or volunteering and really creating routes, even if it is maybe temporary for 3 or 4 months. But I think to slow travel, you can't be staying in a hostel, in my opinion, anyway.
It's been exciting for us because we're in Plovdiv for 2 months. So we bought lots of spices from the markets, and we have upcycled our old food jars, and now we keep the spices in there. And it's the first time we've been able to do that in almost a year, and it feels so like, it's just, having our own space is a big thing as well, and you don't have that in hostels at all.
And so you're close to going back home. What would you say has been your highlights of the trip this year?
Ooh, I have to say 3. You go first.
Okay. It's so hard. Well, I think vanning in New Zealand, which I think is
copying mine.
which I think is probably one of yours as well. But that was an amazing experience, and I know it's on a lot of people's bucket lists. Number 2 for me, like, I know Machu Picchu was my number 1 thing to do, but I don't think it's in my top 3, to be honest. But the Galapagos Islands were incredible. Like, some of the experiences we had there, like, really love the water and the beaches, and I really especially love animals and diving and snorkeling, so that was phenomenal.
Just like swimming in the clearest, deepest water, and you're surrounded by wild sea lions, and they're playing with you, and like then sea turtles just float past, and it was insane.
Yeah. Wow. Are we doing 2?
Yeah, sure.
And I think our yoga teacher training.
No!
It's nice that you share the same highlights. It's good.
Yeah,
Well, I was going to also say when we got married.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite an important one, yeah.
Yeah, so we eloped in Bolivia, and we planned our wedding in 4 days, and we had about maybe 30 people from the hostel as our wedding guests, and our French friend was our celebrant. So we're not legally married, but we feel very married.
Yeah, I think it did change for us afterwards.
Yeah, which is the whole
I guess
point.
that is a highlight also.
No.
That's amazing. What a cool story.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a fun day.
Yeah. And what were yours?
Well, yeah, like van life and Galapagos, and because you stole those, I was then going to say yoga teacher training.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the same.
I think the fact that they are the same is because we did make an effort to get on the same page.
Yeah, that's true. And I think when we were both enjoying it, like traveling with someone, it's definitely better if you're both enjoying the experience and having the same sort of good time, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of parts through South America where you weren't enjoying it and I was, and you have to sort of deal with that in a relationship as well. So that's why we talk about travel values a lot. It's like we weren't aligned with our travel values then, so the experiences we're having were quite different, and then it's hard to come together on those. So if you have those aligned, like I'm sure you guys are pretty aligned now, it's a much better experience for everyone.
Yeah.
It's a learning process. It took us time to realize what was that we actually enjoyed and what we wanted to do and what we wanted to stop doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And made a big difference.
Even if you're traveling in a relationship, like you spend 24/7 together, it's okay to like different things, and you can go off and do something on your own, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't do that very often, actually, but yes. Yeah, we should do that some more. Maybe you're getting bored of me.
No, I'm not.
Not yet. Cool. Well, thanks so much, guys. It was a real pleasure talking to you and finally putting faces to names as well.
Yeah, pleasure for us. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we really enjoyed sharing these experiences because sometimes you do feel like you're the only one having them. So it's really nice to share them and talk about things that we really care about.
Especially because these are really like hard-won lessons for us. And all of these things that we are like, okay, that really impacts my life. We've had to learn the hard way. So it's nice to, in one way, prepare other travelers for it, but in another way to learn from other travelers and to vent and relate to each other, especially travelers that have the same values.
Yeah. And to know one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you go back, are you going to continue traveling? Is it like a stopover, or are you going to be kind of settling back into life in Australia?
We haven't really decided. We
change our minds a lot.
I think we'll go home and settle in for a bit. We miss a lot of things from back home, so we'll settle in. But I think we will get itchy feet quite quickly.
Probably.
And we really enjoy coming places, and we didn't get a lot of time to settle in. Like, this is one of the first places settled in, made friends, and felt a part of a community again. So we'd like to do that back home and then come back on the road and slow travel again. That's what we want.
Yeah, it would be great if we could take another year, like, sorry, mum and dad, but we could just go to 4 places and spend 3 months in each place, because we could work along the way, we could live in line with our values, and we could get to know places better. And it's like you're not sacrificing as much to travel, because you're like doing real life and traveling at the same time.
Cool. Okay, so everyone should kind of watch the Ecolust.life space and see what more you have to offer them and to share on your experiences. Cool.
We'll we have an episode about returning to real life coming up this season on Ecolust podcast, so I'm interested to see what that will hold.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Yeah,
it was a real
thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you, and enjoy your last few weeks or your last month in Plovdiv. Almost said that wrong. Plovdiv.
Well, I think that was an amazing chat with the guys. Thank you for that.
Yes, I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And don't forget to follow Hayley and Chris on Instagram at Ecolust.life. If you liked that video, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss out on next week's episode.
See you next week.
See you!